An island with no formal diplomatic ties with most of the world is about to welcome a high-ranking US envoy. On Wednesday, US Ambassador to the UN, Kelly Craft, travels to Taiwan, an island which neither the United States nor the United Nations recognize as a country. In fact, up until a few days back, official US policy restricted interactions between US and Taiwanese diplomats. Now, that's because China has always claimed Taiwan as a part of its territory, and the US, like other UN member states, recognizes China, not Taiwan. But US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has overturned the US restrictions, saying they were meant to, quote, appease the Chinese government. Naturally, the change in US rules and Kelly Craft's upcoming visit haven't gone down well in China.
We advise US Secretary of State Pompeo to have a clear understanding of history, to stop manipulating Taiwan-related issues, to stop acting against a trend, and not to go further down this wrong and dangerous path. Otherwise, he will be severely punished by history.
And earlier, I spoke to Taiwan's representative to Germany, Xie Wei, and I began by asking him what Taiwan expected from Kelly Craft's visit.
We are expecting with great pleasure and honor to welcome the visit, the official visit. I would like to support not the official visit of the ambassador of USA to the United Nations, Madame Kelly Craft. I think it gives a sign to the world that just like Pompeo, the State Secretary of USA pointed out in his state press release, that Taiwan shares the same value with the USA. We share the democracy. We are both two democracies. We share the common values of individual freedom, the rule of law, and the respect for human dignity. And because the influence of China, Taiwan has been treated very, very unfair for the last 4 or even 5 decades.
Right.
But
the main question,
10 days...
I'm sorry to interrupt. The main question really is that Kelly Craft's visit, this closeness, if you like, between the Trump administration and the government in Taiwan, do you see this carrying over into the new Biden administration, which will be taking over in just a matter of days?
Well, people would say that would be the parting gift of the Trump government for Taiwan. But I think it is also in a part of the inheritance for the Trump government, from the Trump government to the Biden government, because both Democrats and Republicans of the USA are, not were, are friends, have always been the friends of the Taiwan government. So I think it's going to be a very good influence, one of the good influence for the Biden government. They would take it all because it goes into the same direction which Biden would also do for Taiwan, because it's in the interest of the USA, not in the interest of the Trump government. I would like to say that.
Right. Now, the relations between the US and Taiwan have historically been supported by the so-called Taiwan Relations Act, and essentially the US is required by this law to support Taiwan with arms sales so it can defend itself against China. But there is no legal requirement for the US to actually defend Taiwan in the event of an attack by China. Do you think there needs to be a change in this?
The Taiwan Relations Act is to help maintain the security, the stability, the freedom, security, and stability in the Western Pacific, not in the Taiwan Strait. So the importance of Taiwan, the strategic importance of Taiwan is not only for Taiwan, it's also for the USA, for Japan, for South Korea, and for all the Asian countries in the South China Sea. I could even say for Australia, New Zealand, and India. So should there comes to a conflict, a war, if China try to invade Taiwan, that would mean not only a war between Taiwan and China, but also a war declared from the China to the USA to Japan to the Indo-Pacific. I would say that. So the question should be put in another way. If Taiwan is going to be invaded by China, then it means is a war of China against the world of freedom. So I would say, if China would do that, USA, Japan, and I would say even the EU countries, because their trade interest would be damaged should Taiwan be taken over by China.
Stark warning there from Shi Jiwei, Taiwan's representative to Germany. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. And Taiwan has lived with that threat of a Chinese invasion for 7 decades. But with China dramatically building up its navy and military in recent years, the threat has risen to new levels. DW International editor Richard Walker looked at that threat as part of a larger special report.
February 2020. Taiwan's Air Force releases this image to the media. It shows a Taiwanese jet fighter intercepting a Chinese bomber flying near its airspace. A rare glimpse of the dangerous tension in the skies.
So we are defending our skies, we are defending our waters at every moment in the last few decades.
This constant pressuring from the Chinese side is like a stress test on multiple levels. It's partly aimed at demoralizing the Taiwanese public, but it's also simply wearing down Taiwan's planes.
Every time Taiwan has to scramble a fighter jet, that not only weakens the airframe, because every fighter jet that's made has a limited number of hours that it can fly, and it also takes the pilots away from other activities that would improve their readiness.
And perhaps most importantly, all of this probing generates hugely valuable insights for the Chinese military. James Fennell, who led US naval intelligence in the Pacific, explains.
You have to know your adversary's defensive structure and its network, its air defense radar system. Where are the weaknesses? Where are the strengths? How long does it take a fighter, F-16 fighter in Taiwan, to get off the ground to respond to a JH-7 coming from this airbase? They're mapping all of that out.
In the cyber realm too, China continues to probe and chip away. This unassuming building in Shanghai reportedly houses the military hacking unit 61398 that Taiwan suspects of launching many attacks.
They're constantly hitting Taiwan with cyber attacks, with disinformation, misinformation attacks, and of course espionage.
And with its open society, Taiwan is highly vulnerable to disinformation campaigns. For those of us watching from the outside, we owe it to the people of the region to sit up and pay attention to a flashpoint that could blow up into a devastating conflict.
That special report, of course, from DW International editor Richard Walker, who joins me now on the line. Richard, good to have you. Is Taiwan in immediate danger?
Well, Baresh, as we just saw in that clip then, as we heard from the representative here in Germany, Taiwan is under pretty much constant threat, almost under constant attack, whether it be cyber attack or other activities that are in this kind of gray zone, so kind of hostile acts that are below the level of outright military action. Now, China says that it prefers to seek unification, its stated goal, by peaceful means, and that it would like to implement a one country, two systems approach in Taiwan of the kind that we've seen in Hong Kong. But of course, if you're sitting in Taiwan over the last couple of years and watching what's been happening in Hong Kong, that doesn't look all that appealing right now. One country, two systems essentially collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions, and China is rounding up all sorts of democratic activists and putting them in jail. So if China is seeking to unite with Taiwan by persuasion, it's going about it in a pretty funny way. So that leaves the question, well, what kind of military options might it be looking at? And that is very important to stress here, that the Chinese do reserve the right, they say, to use force to unite Taiwan with China. So in the course of this film, we look at three different scenarios, one kind of continuing at this chipping away that we've just seen there, one where they mount an attack on an outlying territory, in the way that we saw Russia do with Crimea, and then finally a full-scale invasion, the most dangerous scenario.
What is the role you see the United States playing in the event of such an attack by China?
Well, it's interesting because, as we just heard from the representative there, and as you pointed out in your introduction there, Biresh, the United States is not fully committed to defending Taiwan in the event that there is an invasion. It is committed to providing Taiwan with weapons, and it is also committed to maintaining the capability to defend Taiwan, but not actually promising to defend it. So there's a debate going on about that, about whether that is too mushy, whether the US needs to make a cast iron commitment, with supporters of that move saying that would stabilize the situation, that would create a clarity, strategic clarity in this flashpoint area. But others say, no, this would be too provocative towards China, and also runs the risk of a Taiwanese government behaving irresponsibly, just knowing that it has that American support. I think one thing to point out is that everyone agrees that Taiwan is particularly vulnerable when the United States is weak or distracted. If you look at what's going on in the United States at the moment, if you can imagine whether it would be in any position politically to step in favor of Taiwan at the moment, that's a big question. So Taiwan is very much on edge at the moment.
Just about 30 seconds left, Richard. What does this mean for the incoming Biden administration and its relations with Taiwan?
Well, the Biden administration, we know, is going to want to stabilize the United States and stabilize the situation internationally, too. So it's not going to want to rock the boat massively. But there's an early test that we all need to be watching out for. Joe Biden says that he wants to call a summit of democracies, partly as a way of kind of generating unity in the face of Chinese authoritarianism. Right. Does he invite Taiwan to that, or does he not? That is a big dilemma for the incoming administration.
Richard Walker, thank you so much.